Welcome to Gary's. Join me on a foot call. We were waiting for Ashita, but she's not turned up. But never mind, she'll call. So how are you, Gary?
I'm really, really good, Karen. Apart from like all the nonsense I went through.
Yeah, you just come back off holiday, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, this new thing they do now is this personal location form, which is like a similar thing to the track and trace thing. And I was talking to you the other day about it, because I tell you everything that I go through in my life, and it's absolutely ridiculous, ludicrous, and obscene in equal measures. Because the thing is, say for argument's sake, someone my age, I'm computer literate to a certain degree, not as good as you and some of the others, but I can still get by. I'll do it on my phone. But basically, what you've got to do is fill out all this stuff, and there's pages and pages of stuff. Now, what you do, you have to do it over here on your phone, and then download it to a PDF, and then say you have a barcode on your phone. Now, they didn't have to have a return one. So when we went over there, there's all these people that are older than me that ain't got a clue about how to use a computer or whatever, and they didn't know they had to do one for the return trip, and they were stressing out. I mean, me and Christine, it took us about 2 hours to do. You have to go all through this, that, and the other, and if you get it wrong, you have to start again. But there was no rep there or anything, and I've got a theory about this. What it is, they don't want old people to travel anymore. They want people just to be locked up in their home, and they don't want them to go abroad. So what they're doing, they're trying to make it as difficult as possible. And then on the flight over there, I must admit, it was half empty or quarter empty, and I managed to sort of crash out. On the way back, it was jam packed, but we still had to wear masks. But I didn't. I just wore a little snood up, which I don't mind wearing in the winter anyway. And then when they weren't looking, I had it down anyway, and I had a cap over my face while I was sleeping. But it was absolutely jam-packed, the flight, and then the pilot had the audacity, when there's about to land, at Stansted, carry on social distancing while you're in the airport. And I wanted to sort of catch him on the baggage carousel and say...
How ridiculous is that when you've got to get on a plane with about 200 people?
Well, I wanted to say to him, you are having a giraffe, mate, aren't you? You've got to be having a giraffe. How dare you say that when the Ryanair flight was absolutely jam-packed, and even other people, that wasn't that awoke.
Yeah, it wasn't a metre socialising there, was there, on the aeroplane?
Well, no. The thing is, Karen, I had a bloke right next to me, and he had his mask down and another for the simple reason, it was quite hot on that flight. I don't know why, but loads of people were. But how could you social distance on a plane anyway, unless it's half full? And I'm wondering, because we was coming back from Corfu, and I think it was getting near the end of the season, whether they stuck 2 flights together. But it just goes to show you the nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Why would they do that? And then when we got out the other end, we had to get on the transit bus. Literally, the next person, it was like sardines. We was all next to each other, and there was all people.
So how does the social distancing work there then?
It can't work. Now listen to this. I've got a thing in front of me, which is from the government website, and some of these things are ridiculous. Now I'm going to tell everyone to listen to this. This is one. The business contact to the pub for a work lunch in tiers 2 and 3. The answers are A, they have to, but B, yes, but Downing Street say no, if freelance or self-employed and don't have office space to entertain clients. What the hell does that mean? Now this is the best one I like. I'm moving house from tier 3 property to another. Can 8 of my neighbours from different households meet up to help lug the furniture? The answers are A, no. Haven't got it. There is C, yes, over the rule of 6. So the virus, you're going to say, oh no, I'm going to infect them because they've got to move their stuff into another property. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And then there's another one here. We're speaking about it. I'm in tier 2. Can I meet up with my partner who lives in another household and have sex? And the answer is, sorry, no nookie, unless you're living in a support bubble with your partner. Now, we remember that's true, Karen, because remember when we were
What the hell? What is this? This was a questionnaire when you got on the plane?
Yeah, what it is, I've got this out of the newspaper, but they got this from the government official website to say because it says even the police chiefs don't even know what it's all about. Politicians are confused. How are we meant to know? But if you remember, do you remember when we was down Hyde Park? There was me, Sheeta, and a couple of others, and then I made out that Sheeta was my girlfriend or one another, didn't I? And the WPC come over and said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, this was in July.
That was in July, and do you remember? And I turned around and said, "Oh, well, it's my girlfriend." We're just mates. I said, "Oh, it's my girlfriend." I said, "Oh, are you cohabiting?" And I said, "No." And she turned around and said, "Oh, no, you're not allowed to do that." Because if you're cohabiting, you can have
And don't forget, Gary, one other thing. The police officers didn't have to wear masks. And when I asked, do you remember, she said, I never recorded it, but she said, we're exempt from wearing masks.
Yeah, no, what she turned around and said was, she said, oh no, we're key workers, like, we don't have to wear masks. So I said to her, straight away, I said, so that means, like, the virus knows you're a copper, and it's not going to infect you. And she started cackling, because obviously, like, these people must be wised up as much as us at what the nonsense it is, and it's all about social engineering and control. But I mean, some of these questions here, like, you know, oh, that's the one I like. Hang on a minute. Is competitive sport allowed in Tier 3? And the answer is, elite sports people and their coaches are exempt from the rule of 6, even in Tier 3. Now, the thing is, you see that at the sort of like at the sports ground, because they're sort of like, you can't not be next to each other. What match yesterday? There was a rugby when they're doing a scrum of one for another. How can you? So what they're going to do? Rewrite the rules to social distance while you're playing rugby? I mean, it's just absolute. This has all been rushed out, you see, because we were sort of like waking so many people up to other things. I think they brought it out like, and
well, it keeps changing, doesn't it?
It keeps changing by the
day. And then it's just ridiculous because they never match in. You know, like you know, you've got to social distance if you're having an operation, but the person you're with can go in and out of the house, but you've got to social. So how does that work then? That means they're going in and out. Oh, it's all just crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now here's another one. You'll love this one. Because, listen, this comes off the official government website. My local pub in Lancashire does a decent pasty for lunch, but falls into Tier 3. Is it allowed to open? Answer B is yes, even if you just have... No, sorry, these are the answers. B, yes, even if you have a pint and some crisps, yes, you can have the pasty wrapped in a serviette while standing at the bar. But the actual answer is yes, if the pasty is served with chips and salad and on a plate as a main meal. So, can you see? What does it matter? Does it matter? What's the chips to do with anything?
All the salad. All the salad. I mean, salad's good for you. Salad's better for you. But yeah, what difference does it make?
Well, what difference does it make? It's like absolutely ludicrous. It doesn't make any sense. I've got another one here, which is like out of another paper, like Tier 3, very high. You've got to follow all rules from Tier 2. Do not socialise with anyone outside your household or support bubble. Now, these are the ones I like, this bubble thing, because some people stick to that, to the letter, don't they? You know, they're saying, oh, no, you're not part of my bubble, you can't come near me. Pubs and bars must close unless they operate as if they were a restaurant serving a main lunch, summer evening meal. But obviously, that's very selective as well. What kind of meal do you have? Because I could call a meal like, I eat a lot of peanuts. So is a bucket of peanuts, like I just had here in this pub, is that a bloody meal? Places of worship remain open, but household mixing is not permitted. No wedding receptions. That's great, isn't it? So basically, if you're in Tier 3, and I love you arrange a wedding like it's cost you like thousands, you've got to go to the wedding. Once you sort of like got married, you just got to all go home. Avoid travelling outside the very high alert area you are in, or entertain a very high alert level area, except for things like work, education or youth services, caring responsibilities, or if you are travelling through as part of a longer journey. I mean, what does this all mean? Avoid staying overnight in another part of the UK or in a very high alert level area if you live elsewhere. I mean, you know, this is all like absolute bullcrap, isn't it? Can I sweat off down the gym with my training partner if I'm in Tier 3? Gyms are open, but you can't go with your mate from another household. Oh dear, it's just like it's.
Do you know what? We talked about it. You reckon that they weren't expecting us to abide by everything. They thought that we would.
This is why they've had to bring out all these draconian measures. Because I think, Karen, they wanted to bring in martial law sooner, and because everyone just sort of like rolled over and just gone with it without questioning. I mean, some of the things I've just given you a little example there about things. Now, if anybody hears what I just said, and they can play it back and hear it again, and think it makes any sense, You know, I'm not the brainiest person that got ever made, but I look at things logically, and to me, it's all mumbo jumbo. It all doesn't make sense. None of it does. It's basically they're just sort of like they're changing the rules as they go along with it. It's just absolutely ludicrous. What do you think?
Well, we don't even know who's running us because it looks like people are other people. It looks like we're run by computer programs. And so we've got all that going on, let alone that they're ploughing out all this stuff. I mean, the bit I don't understand is that Claudio told me that the police are supposed to run with common law. That's the complete. That's the ultimate law. But they're promoting corporate law.
And the thing is, I've seen at my age now, like 60 years old, I've seen the police change, because I remember, like, when you was a kid, like, you know, you'd sort of like you'd throw an egg at a cop, like, and knock his helmet off, and if you got hold of you, he'd clip you around the ear, take you back to your dad, like, you get another one off you get a whopping off your dad as well. But the thing is now, I had a mate that used to be, he's retired now. He used to work at Hendon Police College, and he had to train new recruits like on self-defence and one way or another. Joey's name is, and he said to me, he said one day, it was when Ian Blair was commissioner, he said, here, Gal, he said, I see Ian Blair in the lift today. And I said, oh yeah. I said, so I want to strangle him. I said, why is that? He said, well, they've made my job so hard, because, you know, they're not allowed to do anything. We're not allowed to do anything anymore. We're not allowed, you know, if a little kid spits at us, like, we've got to sort of like turn the other cheek. But now I've got another thing to say about that. That was then. This is now. When them people were down Trafalgar Square the other week, a few of them got whacked, didn't they? Do you remember? A couple of weeks ago, they got their batons out, and there was a geezer walked through whose head was all split open. It looked like he got whopped around the bleeding head. So they changed it back to how it was originally. You know, it's like there's a peaceful protest down there.
The thing is, the police should be working for the people.
They're not, are they? They're not. They're part of the system. I mean, you know, no disrespect. I mean, listen. There's no easy way of saying this. What the police done a couple of weeks ago down at Trafalgar Square, it's no different than blatant bleeding thuggery. What sort of like Millwall would do against.
Well, we know that the police turn up and they make things worse.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, they were being praised, weren't they? You know, a few people got up, like, I don't know who it was, but a few people got up and spoke, like, and said, oh, you know, the police are doing such a good job, like, and then I weren't down there that day, we was down there one before, weren't we? And all of a sudden, like, all the stormtroopers come along and then started wading in, because they said everyone was breaking the Rule of Six law, like, kind of thing. But, you know, it was a peaceful protest, and a peaceful protest should be allowed to go on, because we know that this is all nonsense. I mean, if you remember, first of all, they were saying this all lived on services, didn't they, and one thing or another. There was all these virologists or crisis actors on the TV saying, oh yeah, you know, scrub all your handles down with bleach and this, that and the other. And the thing is, people were believing it. I actually see it with my own eyes. I see people, you know, washing down, you know, I went into someone's house one day, like, and I touched your handle, and they said, oh, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. Out come the bleach and one thing or another, and give it and cleaned it all off. And the trouble is, how can you explain to these people, like, are they going to believe me? Are they going to believe me over a so-called virologist on the news? Of course not. They're going to think, like, what does he know? But I just use my common sense, you know. And I've lived the 60 years of my common sense, like, and my rule of judgment, and it's got me by so far. And when I see, if things don't
The thing
look
is,
right,
they love going on the
probably
fear
ain't.
thing, Gary. You know, even in my own life, I can see that it's all through fear.
It is. I mean, it's a choice. You choose fear or love. We choose love and try and get on with people. But of course, all that's finishing now, because what's happening is, people, you walk down the street, like, and before I used to speak to people, now if you try and speak to them, they run the other way. They're all blimey, look at him, like, what's he going to do? What's he doing speaking to me?
Actually, don't you get the feeling they're going, get away, get away, get away?
Well, it happens to me at the airport. You know, a woman turned around and said, like, and said, oh, you're not social distancing, get away, where's your mask and all that? And I said, well, I've got an exemption pass on, love, which I've got on quite now, which is like the official travel exemption pass. And she grasped me up, like, to the woman there and said, oh, that bloke over there's not social distancing and this, that and the other. And she came over and said, oh, you've got to put your mask on and social distance. I said, well, for a start, I ain't got a bleeding mask. Like I said, you know, so all I have is a little bandana thing. I look more like bleeding Dick Turpin.
Do you know what? A few years ago, if we all turned up with masks, they'd think that we were robbers.
Yeah, now, listen to this, right? When we was going through passport control on the way back, like, I ain't got a mask, but I've got a bandana thing. And I put it up as high as possible, basically just leaving my eyes blank. And I you know, they call me Gary the Cap, don't they, Karen? So I had my cap on, with glasses on the cap. So literally, all they could see was the smallest little bit, almost like what the Muslim women wear, with a little eye slit. So you could basically... So you know, the bloke looked at me, like, and I said to the geezer behind, and he was rolling up. I said I could be Gary, like, I'll be bleeding Dick Turpin, like, he wouldn't know.
I know, it's just absolutely crazy.
Oh, I could have been anybody. I could have been anybody with blue eyes, basically. I could have been anybody with blue eyes going through passport control, and it wouldn't have been none the wiser. So it's amazing how quickly things have changed. When you think just a few years ago, you know, you've got these people getting through passport control, dress themselves up.
I don't understand all this. It's just like, it's foreign to me.
Well, they must have a remit, mustn't they? They changed again, but I'm wondering how many people have got past. I mean, even on the coast.
All I see is it's stopping us getting on as people. They don't want us talking to anybody. They just want us all separate and fearful, and you know, it's not. You know, we're humans. We need contact with humans.
I'm a very social person, like, as you know, and you know, some people would turn around and say, like some of my friends would say, bloody hell, he talks too much, like, you know. Remember when I first met you, I said, look, if I speak too much, just say zip it. That's what my mum used to say, God rest her soul. You know, girl, let someone else get a word in. But the thing is, I prefer to be like that than not talk to anybody. You know, I can't be in a world where you sort of like walking around and not, I mean, I talk to strangers. It's always been my way, you know. Years ago, like, when we used to go on the tube, like, you know, and you see people with their sort of like newspapers and trying to avoid everybody. Well, I was completely opposite, like, you know, if I see someone there, like, I'd have a chat with them, and 9 times out of 10, you get a response and get talking to people. But I mean, now that ain't gonna happen now, is it? God knows what it's like on the tube now. It must be terrible. But look at the tube; they don't do no social distancing on that. We're not seeing the tubes now, like they're packed to suffocation again, and you know.
Well, anyway, they're now sort of putting out, well, anyway, they're saying that those MASKSs cause pneumonia.
Yeah, I've absolutely no doubt.
And what it is you're supposed to throw them away and then use another one, but everybody's buying their, you know, their like designer masks and wearing them over and over again.
Well, I've heard people turn around and say, like, with these masks now, they've even turned around and said, oh no, I'll wear it because it's a fashion statement. Like, I think to myself, hello, I have to pinch myself.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they turned around and said, actually, I'll wear it like because it's fashionable now to sort of like wear it. And you know something, I see so many on the floor, right, around where I live. Now, I've just got, you know, I'm quite a big bloke, like an animal cell, I wanna. If I see someone chuck one of them on the ground carrying, I'm gonna follow them up and post it through their letterbox. If they turn around and say, what have you done? I said, well, you've left something behind, mate. You know, you've left your mask on the ground. You know, you're meant to put it in a bin, not just chuck it. I mean, I've seen discarded masks everywhere, all over the bleeding place. People just throwing them on the floor, and gloves as well. And you know. So,
yeah, why aren't the government putting that out? Make sure you throw your masks away.
No, they don't, do they? That part is missed. And of course, the people that believe that all this is true, they must realise, oh, hang on a minute, I might infect someone. Someone's got to come along and pick that up with my germs on it. They don't care, do they? They just throw it on the floor. You know, and let someone else deal with it. It's not my problem anymore. And that's what changed. Like I said, I'm waiting till I see someone around my neighbourhood, like, drop one. I'll just follow them. I follow them to their own lot and post it through the door, knock on their door and say, excuse me, you left something behind. You know.
When you were in Corfu, what were people like there?
Perfectly okay. I must admit, I hardly see any one of the masks, and I was actually talking to some guy that the last time I was over there was 1990, and I went in and it was going a little screen, but we got quite a rapport going, like, and we talked about people that we knew back in the day, because in 1990 I was working in a place called Martle's Cocktail Bar on the door there. I was a doorman at the time, and I was saying, like, because, you know, Cat was over there at the time. Although strange enough, we didn't know each other at the time. She was working at one end of town, I was working at the other. That's probably why our paths never crossed. But at the end of the night, all the workers used to go to this place called the Albatross, and we were talking about that, you know, and it was quite refreshing, like, to sort of like see someone I probably haven't seen for 30 odd years, a bit older, and I had a bit of hair in those days as well. But it's like, you know, we was having a little rapport going, and to be honest with you, it was quite refreshing, you know, and you think that's how it should be, with people sort of like talking and conversing, not sort of like going into their shell and living in fear all the time. But no, over there, I must admit, I didn't see many people with masks on. It was quite good actually. I mean, it wasn't as busy, obviously, because it was.
You
coming
said
out
that I went to the Corfu probably in the late 90s myself, but you're saying it's quite run down now.
Yes, it looks as if it's been run down for a simple reason. I think years of neglect and people going to other places, you know, because for similar prices, they can go to sort of like Caribbean, can't they, and things like that. But of course, in 1990, when I was over there, that weren't the case. You know, you got a very cheap ticket to go over there, and it was great. But I mean, I travelled back. I had a wonderful. When I was over there in 1990, I was running short of cash. So I had a wonderful journey back. I got a ferry from Corfu town to Brindisi in Italy. Travelled right through Italy, through sort of like France to St Malo, ferry across to Jersey, then Guernsey, then to Weymouth, who sort of like the girl I was living with at the time, like, lived over there, so I spent a bit of time in Weymouth and come home. But it's like, you know, those days are gone. Are things ever going to get back to normal when you can just do them things? All right, you still have passport controls and one thing and another, but I found this trip, this is the first trip I've had abroad since all this started, and I found it, and everyone was saying it. Everyone I met over there, Karen, was saying like they're not going to do it again because it was more like an open prison sentence rather than a holiday. Because they were stressing out. They said like, you know, some of the people over there were older, and they said, oh, we've got to do this like this PLF thing on the way home. We didn't know we was going to have to do it going home, you know, and older people struggle. You know, you lose your, even me to a certain degree, you lose your memory a little bit. I suppose with me, like, it's probably bleeding all the Guinness I've drunk over the years, but that's another story. So the thing is, you lose your memory a little bit, and like, you know, it's not so easy. You see young people doing it, and that's what I'm saying. They don't cater for the older generation. I mean, it's like where I live, there are old people there, and I help them out as much as I can. I live in a sheltered area, and you go down to the doctors with them, and the doctor turns around and says, or the doctor says, and said, oh, he's got to do everything online. And I say, love, he don't know how to turn a bleeding computer on. You know, he ain't got a Scooby-Doo like. I said, you've got to allow for people that are not in a computer race. They automatically assume these days, do it online. That's fine for people like us, you know. But some, I think we're the last generation, Carol. I know you're not that much. You are a good few years younger than me, but I mean, you know, you're similar.
No, I'm not.
How old are you now then?
We don't ask a lady that on a hangout.
You never ask a lady.
I'll tell you afterwards, but I'm not that much younger than you.
No, you told me before. But I mean, I know you're sort of like a similar sort of age group as regards, like, you know, getting towards like middling kind of thing. And the trouble is, we're the last generation, because people that are older than us, they don't know how to do it, and they get their friends and family to do it for them. But you know, some of these people I meet, they haven't got nobody. They haven't got no family and whatever, and they say, oh, you got to do it. Tell them they got to do it online, and they don't know how to do it. You know, it's like they automatically assume that everyone can do things on a computer, which is wrong. You know, they should be allocated. That's what I'm saying. We're moving into a digital world, aren't we?
Yes, that's what it is.
It's becoming a digital world, and we want to be like little sort of like computerised robots. And some of us prefer it the old way, you know, spit and polish way. Just being like.
I think that's it. They just seem to want us as part of a computer program. We're not supposed to have any feelings. We're not supposed to care. We're not supposed to do anything. Which we've talked about what people are turning into. Everybody just doesn't care about anybody but themselves.
You're right, because I'll give you an example about that. I was walking over the woods near where I live when lockdown first happened, and some poor bloke, he was a young bloke as well, he was walking up this hill, and he slipped backwards, and he was caught like in no man's land. It was like he couldn't go up and he couldn't go down, and what I did, I handed out my walking stick to bloody help him, I said, grab hold of that, mate, and unfortunately the walking stick, like the handle just come off. So in the end, me and another bloke got off his bike and come down and give me an hand light to get this poor soul up. Other people were just walking past. They were going, oh no, he might have coronavirus, I'm not going to help him. You know, and I can't walk past people. I can't. It's not in my nature. If I see someone in distress, I'm going to help them. They want you to be a selfish like moron, and just like you said, just
that's what society's been turned into, isn't it? Everybody just thinks of themselves. They can't think of other people or as a group or as a community. I mean, you can blame the government for anything and everything, but I'm sorry, your communities start in your own back gardens. They can't make you have one of those. We do that ourselves. And what they're doing is they're promoting all this other stuff, and everybody's falling in, making sure that they're basically isolated.
So the thing is, like, what it's making everyone into like horrible, selfish people.
They're isolating themselves, but we're humans. We need human contact.
Well, I know I do. I mean, the thing is, you know, and some people might turn around and say to me sometimes, for Christ's sake, girl, shut the F up, you know, you talk too much. But I prefer to be that way than be how it is at the moment, where people are not conversing. And I'm in a pub at the moment, like, you know, and to be honest with you, I've been on my own now, in here for, I suppose, about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I haven't spoke to a soul, apart from the people come up serving me, because you know now you can't go to the bar anymore. What happens is, they come up to you, take your order, and then you sort of like, give the money over, or they bring over a card machine, you do it at your table. So you're not even going out to the bar and having a chinwag like with a barman like you used to do and whatever. So it's becoming more and more insular by the day, you know. And I think it's only going to get worse. So I just can't see no end to it. And, you know, is this a kind of world like? I mean, I'm thinking, listen, who knows how long I've got, like, you know, I'm 60 now, I might have another 10 years, I might have another 20. But I've got great nephews and nieces and loads of sort of like younger generation second cousins and whatever, and you know, what kind of world are they coming into, for goodness sake? You know, it's awful.
It is. I think it's awful, and also we're empaths, so we feel other people's feelings, don't we?
Well, that's right. I feel other people's pain, and like when someone's in distress, like I feel their pain, and like I can't just walk past someone. If I walk out of here now and walk down the road and I see someone walking across the road like and got run over, I'm not gonna walk past. I couldn't live with myself. I could not live with myself.
I'm glad that you still got a caring heart, Gary, because loads of people don't. I've suffered it myself. But people just don't care about anything but themselves, so I understand.
It goes all the way back to the early 80s, like when me and my mate was on a tube train, and there was a drunk bloke on there, and he was ashing everyone. He was going up like and giving this young lady like Marielle, and she was almost in tears. Like, and I said to my mate, look, that could be mine or your sister. And he said, no, you're right, gal. You know, he's a big lump. And I went up and I said, I think you've had too much to drink, mate. You better get off at the next stop. And he said, oh, I'll take you both on and one thing another. And we just lobbed him off the train like at the next stop. And, you know, the woman like was quite like thankful, you know, because she was in a terrible distressed state. Now, what would happen if the same thing happened today? Would people just turn a blind eye and just let it happen? You know, this is my question. Are people going to help each other anymore? Because that's what I'm concerned about. Is this making a nation of people that just don't give a monkeys about anybody but themselves or their own little bubble, you know?
I think you've hit that on the head. It's called their own little bubble, and I told you we've talked about this, how they've got people in society. I mean, I call it a certain name now, but basically most people are now trained as they don't care, there's only me, I'm not interested in you, I only think of myself.
Well, it says here, when these bubble things, then when I was reading you earlier about like the rules to this tier 1, tier 2 and 3 rubbish, like, it was saying like your own little bubble. Well, they're saying it there, aren't they? Basically, do things in your own little bubble, and that's it. And of course, that's happening with everything else.
Well, you know what that means, don't you? That means in a few years' time we'll all be going out in suits. We'll all look like spacemen.
Exactly, and of course another thing as well, that's going to be in their outside life, isn't it? They're going to walk down the road and they see someone, they might walk down the road and see an old girl like have her bag snatched, whereas before, they might say, oh my God, I ain't having that, like, that could be my mum or something, and go up and help us say, oh no, I can't do anything now, I'm in my own little bubble. You know, that's the way I look at things. I look at things like that being, you know, I used to work on the doors a month and I think of that, I think, hang on a minute, you know, I'm not going to allow that to happen. I mean, as old as what I am now, like, if I walk out of here and I see an old girl walking down the road...
Hey, Gary, on the aeroplane, did you see the curve?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Did you see the curve? Did you see the curve up there?
I see the curve. It was absolutely fantastic. I look at the horizon. I see the curve. I see the curve going on forever. And I said to my friend, like Christine, like who's not really awake. She's awake on a few little things. She's awake about all this stuff. But you know, I said, oh, look at that lovely curve out there, like, you know. And some stupid people think the Earth is flat. But you know something. I really want
just so that everybody knows, Gary's not a glober. He's the other way.
I'm only joking. No, but you know something. I wanted to go to find an hardware shop like and do like D Marvel's experiment when he puts the spirit level like up at the window. But it doesn't matter because the thing is with these people.
I should have asked you to take the compass reading, shouldn't I?
Yeah, but they've always got an answer. It doesn't matter what you say to them. It doesn't matter what you say to people. They've always got an answer, haven't they? This is their program. And I mean, I went to a funeral like a little while ago, as you know about. And then when I was there, I thought, oh, I'm gonna catch a few people out here, you know, by saying there should be swathes and swathes and swathes of sort of like people that are ready to be buried or cremated or whatever, you know. And there was about 4 people in total. And you know, if you turn out to someone and say,
I think that's the thing that I find most incredible is that they keep bringing up all these figures. They're just not true. And if people die, they're dying of complications, like they've had heart attacks or surgery, and then they get something else, and then they get called what we're in now.
But the thing is, Karen, it's not just that, is it? There should be boards and boards and boards of people like that are going to get cremated. And then when I turned out to someone and said like, oh, how comes like this board should be full of like people that have been cremated? They say something like, what they did do, they said, oh, they must be having a day off, like they've been rushed off their feet. Rather than, you know, I thought to myself, you've got to be joking. So, you know, they just say, oh, hang on a minute, let's go down a pub and have a Lbry, like, have a pint of Guinness, like, and a Scotch, like, and then we'll do the rest of the bodies tomorrow. It don't work that way. If you've got like hundreds of bodies to sort of like be cremated, you've got to get on the case, haven't you? So it's amazing how people always have an answer for what doesn't matter what you say. It's their program and they got an answer for it. You know, they never.
You know what that is, don't you? It's because they're well trained.
Well, it's because they're programmed so much and they never use their own cognitive thought. I mean, you know what I call it? I've told this for like ages. I call it renting out their brain to the government. They rent out their brain to the government and they don't do their own thinking about things. And you know, anyone with a logical brain would think, no, hang on a minute. You know, that comes like this. There's loads of people here ready to be cremated. You know. And they don't look into things today. You know, 50,000 people last year died of like flu. You know, it's more than what the people have died now of this so-called rubbish. I mean, you know, it's. I don't even think there's anything at all. I mean, you know, it's funny because when we was at the airport, when that Chinese woman had a go at me, like, I said, oh, where's your master, mum and other? Christine chirped up and said, like, yeah, it bleeding started in your country. It's your bloody fault, you know. Because obviously, like, she's believing mainstream, thinking, oh, it comes from Wuhan in bleeding China or wherever it comes from, and you know, she's sort of like trying to defend me, kind of thing. But I've had it on the bus as well, you know. I mean, there's a bloke I know, like, I managed to get him like an exemption pass on the bus. But I said to him because he's got quite bad ADHD and he suffers from autism and whatever. And I said to him, make sure, Martin, you always wear that around your neck. I said, because you can have people say to you, where's your mask? And it happened. I was on the bus one day and it happened to him. And he started crying because he's about my age, but you know, he's like, because he's all intended purposes a child in his mind, I suppose, and whatever. And I comforted him and I said, don't worry, mate. I said, they're just bloody ignorant. The bloke came up and said, oh, where's your mask? And that's what I said to him, wear your exemption pass around your neck because you're going to get this kind of stuff. Because people are turning on people, you know. I felt like saying to him, who are you, a bleeding policeman? But I thought to myself, you know something, he's going to say something to me and I'm going to get the answer.
I'm just quite surprised that people aren't questioning it more. Well, I think a load of people are. They just don't know what to do.
To be honest with you, a lot more people are questioning it than even not awake now. They're starting to look at it. One of my friends was on the phone last night and I actually took a snapshot of like, I'll do it for you later, and I'll send it over your WhatsApp, of all the rules and regulations, and she's on this thing about this bubble thing. She said, Gail, what does it all mean? I said, well, these little bubbles that you have to live in, and some people are running it by the book. You know, you've got to be in this bubble or that bubble, and this bubble can't go into this one. And then you've only got to stop for a minute and seriously think about it yourself and think, what utter, absolute effing garbage that actually some people don't. Some people don't. You know, it's like Catherine Tate, Nan, what an effing liberty, because that's what I think it is. You know, it's like people are just going along with it and not questioning it. And I've questioned everything. Like I said, I was probably I knew the moon landings were fake when I was 9 years old, and we've done shows about it. You know that we've done first time I've done a show with you was about that, and you know it gives you an inquisitive mind, and you just see things straight away. You use your own cognitive thought, and you just think to yourself, well, hang on a minute.
Well, if they're prepared to lie to us about going to space, why can't people understand they're prepared to lie to us about everything?
But I still speak to people that believe in the moon landings. I mean, my uncle did. I told him in 1981, I said, Bill, you know we never went to the moon. I said, it was all down the studio. He said, oh, don't be stupid, that's all balderdash. It's passed on now, God bless his soul, Uncle Bill. But I said, Bill, I said, I see a show the other night, and I said, I've been thinking about it for years. I said, why they didn't do it? I told my dad, like, you know, I said, how comes, like, it weren't in colour when we had a colour TV in 1967, it was in 69. I was 9 or 10 years old then. And I remember one of my mates, like,
yeah, that's a good point, really. Why wasn't it in colour with all the money that they got given to them?
Well, do you know something? When people turn around and say to me, how comes people, ordinary people, what is such a thing as an ordinary people? We, you know, in those days, like, you looked up at these scientists like they were bloody gods and all that because we didn't know any different. And one of my mates, like, he said he was watching it, and he said his dad turned around and said, that's a load of old balderdash, son. That's done in a studio. He told him. So when people turn around and say, how comes people didn't say anything at the time? People did. Remember, we didn't have a voice then. We had a little TV in the corner of the room, which the remote control was you had a bamboo stick, like, to change your channel over. You know what I mean? You didn't have, and the colour was terrible. Like, it was like you had the colour control on the TV. And either the face light was bright red light or green the other way, so you had to sort of like twiddle around till you got it right. But I mean, the thing is, when people say, why didn't people question it then? People did. And I told you, there was two main conspiracy theorists in the 70s, Bill Casey and Ralph Renee, which the other night, Pete and Pete, I think, forgot whose name it was. His name was Ralph Renee. There was people in the 70s. People in the 70s were questioning it, but no one listened to them. And of course, in those days, we didn't have the internet to converse with each other. So if anyone did smell a rat, you had to do it like by a hearsay or write a book. And then if you wrote a book, you know, most people might pick it up and say, oh, this geezer's like mad, like people think I am, like when I said we never went to the moon. But, you know, if anyone still really thinks that we went to the moon, or the International Space Station is up there, like, well, I feel sorry for you. I mean, I read in the paper today, like, they got a new loo. They got a new loo now for the International Space Station. It's costing like $1 billion or something.
Waste
like
of
that.
our money, or the people's money.
Well, obviously, like, they're having a divvy up, aren't they, like, with that, and they're just probably putting like an ordinary blinking loo up there. If it was up there in the first place, which I know it ain't, it's in a blinking tank light somewhere.
It's in our imaginations, because what they did was, that's why I made my video. I found this footage where this astronaut, they were supposed to be live. It was Bowen and somebody else in 2013. It's just when it panned round, one of them was frozen and the other one wasn't. So they weren't live, they weren't together. And to me, it's like, it takes your freedom away because it makes you believe something that's not real.
But you know, say when you see those clowns come out of the space station like a few years ago, and doing work outside, they were using spanners that you would see on Bleeding Blue Peter, gigantic big spanners. And you know, with my experiment, like with the gloves, I mean, I'm the first one that's done the experiment since Ralph Renee done it in 1974. So if Pete and Pete watch this, they're more than welcome to have my experiment and show it on their show. But his name was Ralph Renee, and he proved that what happens is a glove or a suit loses its dexterity in a vacuum. And when I evacuated that chamber, I did it down Speaker's Corner. You literally can hardly move. You can hardly move.
Yes, you got me doing that, didn't you? You got me. You showed me.
Do you remember?
Yeah. And do you know what else is really weird? If you go into this vacuum, say you did, you'd blow up.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be. You'd last while you were in the vacuum, maybe in a suit, sort of. But the moment they decompressured it, you would die anyway. You would just blow up.
You would be like the Michelin Man, and people turn around and say to me, "Oh yeah, but mate, you're only using a marigold glove." And I said it'd be worse with one of their gloves, cocker. I said they had gloves with supposedly about 12 or 13 layers. I said, so you've got all the friction and all the depth of them layers of gloves. I said it'd be 100 times worse. I said you'd lose complete dexterity. You won't be able to move. You won't be able to move your hand at all. I said, and then the suit. I mean, Ralph Renee actually in the 70s, he got in contact with NASA, and he turned around in the 80s. I can't remember. What happened was there was a nuclear explosion, supposedly, like at 3 Mile Island, like in New York, and he worked out. He was a very clever man, Ralph Renee, and he worked out like how bad the radiation would be. So he phoned up NASA and said, "I'll tell you what. I'll never say another word to you if you suit up a couple of your guys and send them to 3 Mile Island, because their suits should be able to resist the radiation." And they never done it. They never got back to him because they know they can't do it. They said to him, "Oh no, well you're saying like that your suits can do this, that, and the other." Well, I've worked out. He showed them the maths and everything. He said, "I've calculated that they should be perfectly okay with what you're telling us, like they do with us."
Can I ask you something, Gary?
Yeah.
What it was is that obviously I got into space a bit, and all you've got to do is watch NASA and have a look at it, and you can find loads of mistakes. But I watched someone when they were in vacuums, and the thing is that a vacuum here or a vacuum there is going to be the same, isn't it? So if you were here in a vacuum or you were on the moon in a vacuum, it's the same. Well, they weren't bouncing up and down in the vacuum here. They were just walking around like we would. So how come they're bouncing around on the moon?
Exactly. And like I said, there's no way.
Do you agree with me? I never got that, and I couldn't understand why people didn't get that. If they're walking around here in a vacuum, so they say they're in one, and they're showing you they're in a vacuum, then they wouldn't be bouncing around on the moon because it's a vacuum.
I think it was Bill Cason or someone speeded it up, and when he speeded it up 2 times, it was exactly like you'd be running around on Earth. I mean, you actually see, like, you got the pins, you actually see the wires that are holding them, and you see them when they're doing. If you slow it down, they get pulled up. There's a wire pulling them up. I mean, there's no way you could get up like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. And the first thing, when the first sort of like Apollo 11, the lunar lander landed on the moon, Bill Cason see it straight away because he worked for a company called Rocketdyne, and he knew about rockets and about sort of like what should happen like with different given materials, and it's landing on soil. And there was no blast crater. And straight away, he turned out to his wife and said, "This is in a studio." She said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I can tell straight away." She said, "Because," he said, "there's no blast crater." But when he sort of like got in contact with NASA, they turned around and said to him, "Oh no, there was, but it was only minimal because it was in a vacuum and whatever." But that's absolute rubbish, because we know now that a rocket can't work in space anyway. A rocket has to have something to push against. That's why, if you notice, when they take off, they push against the ground and they go up in an arc. Because what happens is the air gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and they can only work so hard. They need something to push.
I don't know whether you saw my video. I did one of the Challenger, and this first bit of footage, there was just smoke going up. There was no Challenger there, and then I just broke it down, and I just said none of this is real. I just showed them, and about 700 people have watched that video. 700 and something people.
Well, I mean that's a laughable thing, isn't it? Like when they re-enter Earth's atmosphere, like they have all them tiles and they've broken off in the past, and like all these tiles are broken up. Now you'd think with all the technology they've got, they'd have some kind of adhesive that can actually stick a tile on so it don't come off. I mean, I've actually
not just that, they're put in a very small space, and if all that heat was real, they'd burn up.
Yeah, it's absolutely,
If it burns the tiles, it's going to burn everything else, isn't it?
Well, if the tile burned off, straight away it would turn off. It would burn through the aluminium, wouldn't it? It's only thin aluminium. It would burn off. I mean, it doesn't make sense at all.
I mean, the actual capsule, like they used to come down from the moon in, is tiny. It had 3 men in it. If that was encased in fire, they would have been like being in a. Well, they'd be in a fire.
Well, if you remember, they sort of like got a heat shield or something like a titanium heat shield. They come down in, right? That's sort of like that takes all the heat off, and everything's all rubbish. I mean, the thing is, if you remember, they had the lunar rover, didn't they? Where they went around the bleeding moon on, and it's absolutely ludicrous. When you look at it now, some of it was just a little toy. But a geezer in America, I can't remember who it was, I watched a video where you actually find the chassis is off of a Willys Jeep. It cost millions and millions and millions to design that, but the chassis is a Willys Jeep chassis. So.
And how did they get that up there?
Yeah, and how did they get that up there? Because that lunar land is small, so they had to pack that in with everything else they got, and all of a sudden it just appeared. We know you can look, you actually just see it. There's no tyre tracks. It's like it's just sitting there with no tyre tracks at the rear and no tyre tracks in the front. And of course, another thing that makes all nonsense of it, we were talking about gas pressures earlier. If they had pneumatic tyres, they would have bloody blown up anyway. They would have pinged. They would have, you know, what they're saying is now, first of all, they used to turn around and say, oh, yeah, they were pneumatic tyres. Now they're saying, oh, no, it was a very special rubber that we used, and they were solid tyres, like they use on mobility scooters and all that. Absolute rubbish. They use pneumatic tyres. And if you said they had like what do you like this, signals back to Earth and all that.
Do you know, I reckon we should put all the politicians in a rocket. Yeah.
You know, the rocket just goes in an arc triangle, away from there. Sort of
To play another. Money. Give them.
They died in the capsule for a pathological liar because she's been on. I've seen her on TV saying like, you know, oh my husband like died in a fire. He was put to death because. He knew it was all rubbish and whatever, and Scott Grissom as well, is his son. He's been on TV saying the same thing. But there's other people as well that have died. There's a guy called something Barron, something like he had to investigate where all the money was going, like in NASA and the Apollo missions. Ronald Cohen Barron, I think his name was, and he mysteriously before his dossier could sort of like see the light of day, he died in a mysterious like car accident, run off the road, and he died. His wife and his stepchild died in an accident. So you know, a lot of people have died that maybe were sort of like getting to the truth. And of course, it's such a big thing because can you imagine like if 250 million people in America alone suddenly realised that all their hard-earned tax dollars was going to a. I mean,
I wonder when they realise, because, you know, like, I used this person's footage the other day. Greg Roberts is his name, and he's got Marlon Brando as Burt Reynolds. He got Bing Crosby was Dean Martin was Gene Kelly. They're all playing each other, so. In a sense, the population's just been halved by that because they're all playing different roles. And they're not the only one. They're one of the Gene Kellys. They're one of the Dean Martins. Because there's always going to be 2 or 3 of them.
Have you seen the guy, I don't know if he's still working there, but the groundsman at Gracelands, he looks just like Elvis would, like, if he was about 80 years old. He's got grey hair, a ponytail. He looks an absolute ringer. Of Elvis Presley, you know. So the thing is, I think they tell you in plain terms, I have to tell you. I think it's trying to put their karma right. But when they turn around and say in 1977, oh, Elvis has died, yeah, the character.
Yeah, that's when Elvis Presley became the character. Died.
Yeah,
just like in EastEnders when they kill them off in the soap operas.
Yeah, not the actual person, and he probably maybe is a groundsman, like, and they said to him, look. You're never going to be a pop star again, but you can be the groundsman like around sort of like Gracelands and whatever. I mean, my mum went there, you know, and she said she was amazed how small it was. She said she imagined Elvis, and when you see it on the TV, you see this is how sort of like the TV can deceive you. You see this massive big mansion, and she went there with the old man, my stepfather, and they said they were very disappointed. They said the grounds is like really big, but the actual place itself is quite titchy, and you can only go to certain parts of it. Now, if I knew then what I know now, I'd have said to her, "Did you see anyone there that looked like Elvis, Mum?" But we both know this is a current thing. We both know that sort of like, you know, the part of Paul McCartney has been played by Billy Shears since 1966. We spoke about this before, you know, and he's actually bought books out now.
I was really shocked when I saw two of the Bee Gees, Harrison and Ringo are two of the Bee Gees.
But the thing is, the Beatles are actually quite, I hate to speak ill about it, they were quite bloody useless. They were not very good musicians at all. Apparently in Hamburg, they used to do all cover songs of one for another, and the Tavistock Institute got hold of them and turned them into this like mega group. But there's even, I mean, I was seeing a program with Mike Williams the other day. Now Mike Williams and Tina Foster are two foremost people in the world about Billy Shears playing Paul McCartney, and he turned around and said he actually thinks now they didn't write any of their records at all. It was impossible because of the time frames. A very clever man, Mike, because of the time frames involved. Not only that, he actually thinks Billy Shears was actually involved very early on in rock. Because no disrespect, no, I'm not taking away from Billy Shears. A very, very, very talented musician. He's brilliant. He's a brilliant songwriter. And everything else, but he's played the part of Paul McCartney, so it's still a bloody fool. But I suppose he's actually.
I don't know how they managed to do it, because this guy broke down that Bing Crosby played 15 parts.
He's 3 inches taller. I mean, Paul McCartney is 3 inches taller than Paul McCartney. But apparently, he wrote even the early stuff. Mike Williams seems to think now that even a lot of the early stuff that he wrote, he was involved even before. Listen, we don't know what happened to Paul McCartney. Listen, Paul McCartney might still be alive. But apparently they were terrible musicians. George Martin, when George Martin first heard them, he turned around and said, "They're bloody awful. They're terrible." And the Tavistock Institute turned them into this group, and obviously people made bloody millions and billions out of it. Like, so this group, and something they reckon session musicians were used between 1962 and 66. Now, a lot of people are going to hear what I'm saying now in the true community that don't know about this, and they're going to say, "Oh, I hate you, Gary," now, like they're saying all that. Listen, this ain't coming from my lips. I've done my research, and Mike, look, you've only got to Google Mike Williams, like, who's just been at sort of like Flattoberfest. I don't know what he spoke about. I still want to see whether he spoke about like Billy Shears playing Paul McCartney or not at Flattoberfest. I don't know, but him and Tina Foster, who's a foremost like attorney of law in America, she wanted to debunk it. She thought I'm going to debunk it like in 5 minutes flat, and all these people can't. They look into it, and she actually sent away sort of like face recognition pictures where they do all the spots and whatever, and to the two top pathologists in the world, and they turned around and said these are two different people. So she sent of the original Paul McCartney plus like Billy Shears, and they said no, they're two different people. They're not the same, even with plastic surgery. Like, the thing is, he's actually brought out a book. He actually brought out a book that he got ghostwritten, the memoirs of Billy Shears, where he's got his back face to the camera. So I think he's in a bit of a quandary as well, because you know when he passes on, like, all this is going to come out. But until he dies, he probably can't. He can't say anything. He's got a disclosure agreement saying, like, you've got to take this to the grave. He's 82 now, Billy Shears. So, you know, who knows how much longer he's got. And I can't knock him. He's a brilliant musician. I mean, you know, he had rings in the 70s, which I said this to Marilyn once. I said the reason I think they called them wings, waiting in the wings. Like, you know, he's been waiting in the wings to come along and take over from Paul McCartney, who was quite, I hate to say this, like, for all intent and purposes, was good, but nowhere near Billy Shears' league. I mean, you know, Sgt. Pepper that he wrote single-handedly is probably one of the top like albums of all time in my eyes. But it wasn't them that done it, and you actually see the funeral scene on the album cover. Scene like of now, I'm sure Vertic must know about this. He's in the music industry. You know, I was actually a ball boat, and I see a musician. I said to him, I've got something to tell you. I said, because he looked like Rod Stewart, this bloke, and I said to him, I said, you're probably going to think I'm mad. I said, Paul McCartney ain't who he thinks he is. He said, oh, I know. He said, it's Billy Shears. Everyone knows it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing is, it's well known in the music industry. You know, people. I was gobsmacked when he told me, because he straight away he said to me, he said he does a Rod Stewart act like over in the Costa del Sol or something. And he said to me, he goes, oh yeah, he said it's well known in the music industry. He said no, it's no secret. He said obviously like mainstream don't show it, but it ain't no secret, you know. And he said, I can't knock him. He's a very talented man, very very talented man. But you know, the Beatles have been put on a pedestal that they really didn't deserve, and a lot of people are not going to like what I've been saying here if they're Beatles fans. I'm a Beatles fan. I still listen to their music today. Did they write their music? And were they who we thought they were? No. I categorically don't think they are now. And I've watched enough like Mike Williams videos to realise that they're not. And it broke my heart first of all. And I said when I started looking at that, I thought, oh no, this is not another thing that's going to be broken down and not be real. And it broke my. I've got to be honest with you, Karen. It actually broke my. I was almost in tears.
I know, and a lot of people can't get their heads around the fact that they're not real. Sport's not real.
I was almost
the
in
news
tears.
isn't real. None of it's real. It's all
Nothing.
a program
it's all
for us.
Fake. It's all fake. It's all fake. Everything.
All of it.
Everything.
Yeah, everything.
You know. And you know something. You know. I've got over that and moved on. But I mean, I remember going.
Some people don't though, do they? And they keep watching it.
Oh, I know people like that watch TV from. I mean, that was my uncle's problem. God bless his soul. Like he used to watch the TV morning and at night, and I think you do that for years, like, and you end up getting.
I know we're not. You don't want to. You know, we're not here to talk about this subject, but that's why people are narcissistic because they won't stop watching the programs.
They watch it all day long, don't they?
Yeah, whether it's sport, whether it's the news, whether it's films, whether it's programs, documentaries, it's all being made to give you disinformation.
Yeah, well, you know something. You see something with different eyes now, don't you? When you watch all these programs like on the Discovery Channel and things like that. When I go round some of my relatives' house, they got all these different channels and all that. I must admit, I've still got a TV because if I see anything, I relay it to you because I know you don't watch TV like I've done with a double-decker light train and things like that. So if I see something, I say,
Gary's the person. I mean, it's not on this channel. It was on the Unscrambled Channel.
Yeah,
Explain that one, Gary.
Well, what it was, it's a funny story actually because I was looking in the newspaper and I see a double-decker train and I thought one person's definitely going to know about this, like is Marilyn, considering like her father like was one of the great train robbers. So straight away I found out Marilyn. I said, "Hey Marilyn," I said, "I got something to tell you." I said, "Did you ever hear anything? Did your dad ever say to you like about that?" Because obviously, if anyone knows about trains, he definitely did. Old Thomas. I said, "Did your dad ever tell you about double-decker trains like in the 50s or whatever?" She said, "No, of course not, Gal." I said, "I've got a thing in the paper here that they used to have double-decker trains. Now, whether it's a Mandela effect or what,
it came into Houston train station till the 70s, didn't it?
Yeah, and I texted it over to you, and I don't remember.
Yeah, that's what the newspaper's saying. It came here to to Houston Station till the 70s.
And I never ever see a double-decker train in my life. And I mean, I used to get trains when I was a kid. I still remember the times when I used to have like the old choo-choo trains, like steam ones, the very early 60s. Casey Jones, Steaming on a Rolling, that was a program.
Yeah, I used to where I used to live. The train used to pass the bottom of the garden, and they were steam trains.
That's right. And the thing is, like, I thought myself a double-decker train. And
can I just say something, Gary? 1 second. You can't see it, but I've used some of Wide Awake's footage, and he's showing the sun going down. And what it is we get the extra suns, don't you? The extra lights in the sky. Well, it's showing the sun in the middle, and it's showing lighter spots either side, like they could have been the extra suns. They're not there, but it looks like the same thing. Anyway, carry on. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, but back to that train light, you think to yourself, how could that have been around and no one knew about it? It doesn't make sense.
Really, because they want to put that as history when it's not.
Yeah.
But then I found one where we had mobile phones in the 40s.
Well, don't you remember? I sent you a clip, didn't I, of a Charlie Chaplin film where sort of like the woman's walking out with a phone. She's walking out of a blinking phone years before this time, but I think they reinvent everything. I think everything's reinvented.
Or what it is we had it, and something like the Second World War. If they were coming in like they were coming in, but people just did on the wall. rather than all the technology that we had. They don't remember it the same.
Remember, I've got a theory about this. I think to myself, do you remember, like I told you, I went to Berlin like a few months ago, like, and I said if I see any sort of like indication of the Tartarian Empire, I'll send it across here. But there was none there at all, and I think like part of the war was to do with that, to destroy it.
Yeah,
all.
Berlin, right? In the Olympics they had in the 30s, it was full of these Tartaria buildings. Of course, the war destroyed them. And that's what wars are about. They tell us we're having a war or something. It's to destroy the infrastructure.
I remember a couple of years ago, like I realised this was the second Gulf War as well, like because they had all that fantastic architecture in Iraq and even some parts of Afghanistan. Because I said around to a bloke one day, there was a building in the middle of nowhere, and I said to him, I goes, the Polish bugs, they're all Polish drivers over here now, lorry drivers. I said, I forget his name now, it's Antonov or whatever, I can't remember his name. I said to him, excuse me, I said, see that there? I said, that was built a few hundred years ago. I said to him, how was that transported there, all the materials? He said to me, listen, I'll do a terrible Polish accent. He said, Gary, my friend Gary, this is definitely done on back of lorry. So I said to him, no. I said, because we've been told that that's done on a horse-drawn carriage. He said, no, impossible. This is definitely done on...
Well, I've got something like that. You know, in Brighton, there are 2 piers. One of them's still going. One of them's just a little broken shell left because it's been damaged and broken, and what's left is a tiny bit of it. But a lot of people don't realise, in the 1830s, there was another pier there. It was half a suspension bridge that was burrowed into the rock, right? And then basically at the end of the pier, it was quicker to get to Paris from Brighton, which I didn't know that. And, you know, if you went on a boat and then you travelled, it was quicker to go from Brighton than Calais. And then basically, on the end of the platform was thousands of tons of marble. Yet what they're saying is they found it difficult delivering coal and the necessities to the people in Brighton because they didn't have roads. How the hell would they have made a half a suspension bridge and burrowed it into the hills?
Well, that's right, yeah. Well, I told you that story about the guy, they got one of the top stonemasons in the world, and they said they found a sarcophagus, and it had complete perfect right angles, but it was completely smooth at the bottom, and they said to him, we want you to replicate this, and he said, okay. So he did it, but you like laser cutting tools. When they looked at it under the microscope, you can still see the ridges like from the cutting tool. When they said, oh no, that isn't this. He said, if I start scoring it now, it's not going to be completely sort of like 90 degrees everywhere. And
well, I put out some footage from.
Well, he said he can't. He actually turned around and said, he said I've got nothing in my arsenal. He said I've got nothing in my arsenal that can replicate that there, and they said you must be able to, because this was made like a couple of thousand years ago. He said I can't. He said I've got nothing today. He said there's nothing in my arsenal that can cut a complete out of stone right angles without having any ridges. He said because once I start sort of like sanding all that down, it's going to be all uneven and all that. You know, he can't get it exactly how they wanted it, and it just goes to show you that we had a magnificent technology not so long ago, maybe a couple of hundred years ago. Free energy.
Hello? Gary? You back?
Hello? It's just my
yeah, you're back.
Phoning up.
I have shown this footage from the Second World War in one of my videos, and someone wrote to me and said, go to this minute, is that man got a vape in his hand? And when you have a look at it, it's not a pipe he's just got a long stick. And you're thinking, what? We had vapes then?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, Karen, I've got to curtail this conversation because my mate's ringing me up, and I think it's quite important actually, because he just had a death in the family, like, you know. So I better ring him back, like, and see what he wants. Probably about the funeral or something, you know.
Well, we've been going for just over an hour, Gary.
Oh, right, yeah.
Do you want to go then? Anyway, Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you.
And we're carrying this on. We're carrying this on. I hate to cut it off like so quickly like this, like, you know. But it wonder why he can't get hold of me. He's in a right old state at the moment. Obviously, right, with just death in the family and whatever, you know. So.
No, that's okay. We've had a brilliant talk. We've talked the hind legs off a donkey.
Well, we talked about most things, and even subjects we weren't intended to talk, because everything I talk about, apart from like all them COVID rules, are just in my head. You know, it's just their kind of thing, and I hope it always will be, because you know.
Yeah, we've done that one though, Gary. We're empaths, and we
Yeah.
see things
Yeah,
just a little bit differently, and we understand a bit differently, maybe.
Yeah. I think so. And like, you know, we don't like how this world's becoming, you know, and it's all foreign to us, isn't it? It's completely foreign what's going on. You know,
Yeah.
we can't get our head around it.
Well, that's for sure. It is hard to get your head around it all, and every day there seems to be new rules, new crap, new everything.
I know. I just feel like we're living in a giant.
We're living in the Twilight Zone now.
A giant open prison, I call it.
I call it a boot camp.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I know someone that went to Ford Open prison. Like, I think it was easier in there. He had Sky TV and everything.
People need to wake up.
They need to wake up. People need to wake up. We just need like 15 to 20% of the world population to wake up, right? And it's all done and dusted. It's all over. But unfortunately, some people are not. They're dead asleep, and you know they believe everything they're told. And you know nothing we can do.
Thing is, say 20 years ago, and I was watching 9/11, I believed it then, but I don't now. When you do your own research.
Do you remember I told you, as soon as I watched it, that was before my accident, and I went into an office down the West End, down the city, and I see the nose cone come out the other side, and I smelt it right then, because, you know, I thought, how can something made out of aluminium, like, go through...
And most people don't realise aluminium is what we have our Coke cans in, you know?
Yeah.
So we're basically flying around in a bigger Coke can. There's no way it'd be able to deal with steel or glass.
Yeah. No. Right, anyway, Karen, I better go.
Gary, thank you so much. Love you lots. Thank you so much for the chat.
As always. And I'll speak to you. Give us a call tomorrow, like, we'll have a chat.
All right, my darling. Thank you so much.
Have a chat tomorrow. I'm sorry to cut you off, but my mate, like, his sister just died. I was telling you the other day, his sister died the other day, so I better give him a call and see what he wants, you know. That's
okay, my darling. You go.
Yeah, all right. I love you lots, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.
All right, my darling.
All right, love you. Bye.
Bye, darling.
Bye.
Bye, darling. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And Gary's now gone. That was a really great talk with Gary. Ashita didn't come on. Maybe next time we'll get Ashita. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Always great talking to Gary. He has lots to talk about. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the hangout. Another, what do you call it? Freedom fighter. Anyway, take care, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thank you, chat room. Thank you, Gary. Mwah.